All right, everybody. I wanted to give you a little bit of a preview about what that exam is going to look like because this week is exam week. So here's what it is. It's 10 short answer questions. Having said that, you can't get full credit with a single sentence with any of these. The questions are bigger than that. Most of the questions are coming from that review sheet. So if you've had that in front of you and you've been answering those questions as you've been watching the video lectures, you should be pretty well set up and prepared to take this exam and do pretty well. I'll give you an example. I'll tell you one of the questions that's on there. So there's 10 questions. I've set it for 120 minutes, but I did that to give you flexibility so that you have plenty of time so that you shouldn't worry about time. With 10 questions in 2 hours, I give this exact exam in a 50-minute class. I've done that before. So, this is more than, almost triple the time. So time should not really be a problem. That's not something I want anybody to be worried about. That's why I made it 2 hours. At the same time, you can't sit there all day and look up answers if you've not engaged with this material at all. So I do want people to be prepared. How can you be prepared? Look at that review sheet. Can you answer all the questions on the review sheet? If you can, you're adequately prepared and you won't have any problem. So that's what I want people to be thinking about as they're moving through this exam. So there's 10 questions. I'll give you an example of one. This one's actually on there. The question says, what is adverse selection? Part 1. Part 2 says, why is that a problem for insurance companies? And then Part 3 says, what do insurance companies do to prevent the impact from adverse selection? What do they do? Well, we went over this, and hopefully everybody instantly says, oh yeah, I know exactly what we're talking about with adverse selection, the idea that people who have a higher likelihood of loss are more likely to seek insurance. That's adverse selection. Why is that a problem for insurance companies? Well, if they succeed, then only people who have high probability of loss, they're going to make up a disproportionate amount of the pool, and then losses will be greater than what the insurance company expected. And if it's greater than what they expected, we end up with that vicious price cycle where, oh, it's greater than what I expected. Next year, I have to increase the price. And then that just continues because the better risks drop out of the pool. And so in the following year, we have even higher losses and we have to raise prices again. And we have this upward cycle in pricing and it destroys the insurance mechanism. That's the problem for insurance companies. Adverse selection, if it's not corrected, destroys your insurance mechanism. And then so the last part of the question said, well, what do insurance companies do? They underwrite, right? They look at people's risk and they try to make sure that the amount that they're paying for insurance reflects their risk. You have to do that. You have to tie price to risk or else you're going to end up with adverse selection. I'm repeating myself now, right? Hopefully you say, gosh, he said this before. Yeah. The whole exam is like that. It's questions that we've talked about. There's no tricks. There's no secrets. If you're familiar with the content, you've been watching the lectures, you've been taking notes on the review sheet, there isn't anything that'll throw you. It is something that you do have to use your own words. If you're going to try to, it always becomes real obvious when somebody types in these questions to Google and just pastes the answers that they get because it doesn't make any sense. And so you won't get full credit if you do that. And if I discover that you've copied other people's work without attribution and tried to claim it as your own, please be aware that's academic dishonesty. So don't do that. Just answer the questions on your own. Yeah, you might have to refer to your notes or your books, but put it in your own words. And that's fine. I expect that. That's all right. You'll have to do that for some questions. So 10 questions, 120 minutes. You can't get full credit with a single sentence. And you'll see that very quickly. Some of these questions have multiple parts. And I think it does a pretty good job of hitting the high points of what we covered. As far as grading, how am I going to grade it? This is something that actually goes fairly quickly because I'm going to grade it on a scale of 0 to 2. 2 is a perfect. I could hold it up to the class and say, this is the answer I was looking for. A 0 is, no, you haven't addressed this question at all. A 1 means that, yeah, you've got some elements that are important here, but you're missing something major. So that's the grading scale, and we do that for all 10 questions. So yeah, it'll say that it's out of 20 points. At the end, I have to adjust to turn that into something that looks more like a distribution that you're familiar with. I'm not just going to take percentages. In my mind, I'm thinking, if a person got half of the points, that means they got, 10 out of 20. That's not terrible. That means they got the most important parts for most of the questions. So I wouldn't convert that into a 50% failing grade. What exactly will I do? I don't know. I need to see what the distribution comes out like. But that's what the scale is going to be. The raw scale will be from 0 to 20. And then I have to convert that to make it out of 100 points, because that's what the syllabus says. Every exam is out of 100 points. Okay, I think that's all I can do to help you. Watch that review sheet, prepare from there. And if you've watched all the lectures and you've filled out all the questions on the review sheet, and the quizzes along the way have been giving you some help, to try to give you some idea as to where you're solid and where you might need a little bit more study, using all of that information together should help you. And that should be well enough to prepare you for this exam. So if you have any questions, let me know. Happy to help. And good luck. Do the best you can. That's all you can do, right? Thanks, guys.